Good morning. I'd like to call the regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. It's Monday, November 20th, 2017. It's now 8:30 a.m. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask Selectman Cartier to lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Cindy. Item 2 on the agenda is public forum, limited to 3 minutes on any agenda item. Anybody wishing to address the board, please? Please come to the table and you know the routine. Please give us your name and address. Good morning.
652 Nut Plains Road. It's nice to see you all again for your last meeting. I'll miss some of you. And
You want to miss all of us?
Charles is going to be here,
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't want to discount that, But
You got out of that one, didn't you?
I'll miss being late to work on Monday, that kind of thing. And I am here.
Well,
of course,
I'll miss coming to work. Okay.
Right, we all will. I'm here on item 7, which is the resolution that you might make on the 2 steps of recommendation to the Board of Selectmen for the development of a new transportation plan and the creation of a stakeholder study committee to provide input on the Nut Plains Path project. I certainly hope that you will support this resolution, but again, it wouldn't be me if I didn't ask you to also consider today, as what I call Cynthia the Blaze of Glory, to vote no on proceeding with the Nut Plains pathway.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't you laugh at me.
What a surprise.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 3, which is the approval of the minutes. We have one set of minutes to approve, which is our regular meeting of November 6, 2017. Do I have a motion, please? Is there a second? There's a second. Okay. Any additions or corrections?
Yeah, on page 2, and I didn't go back and look at the numbers, Tracy, but I think we meant under revenues that we brought in 50% versus 51% last year, not 21%.
Yeah, that would make a difference. Anything else? Okay, we'll take a vote to approve the minutes as corrected. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right. Thank you, Gary. Okay.
Good morning.
You're up there already. Item 4, Finance Director, Mary Jane Malavesi. We'll start with 4.1, receive the monthly report from October.
Before we look at the revenue expenses, I just have a couple of things to report. Our audit is going extremely well this year. We already have a draft for it that we're working through, and we expect to have a completed project by month end if we can get it done. I've been speaking with them, and there are no material findings or additional findings that I'm aware of at this time. So I just wanted to bring you up to date on that for your last meeting. As far as the budget for this current year, I thought I'd also give you an update there. It seems to be a moving target. Every day we get a different numbers, but I'll tell you where we are today. The last time I reported, we had a surplus of approximately $251,000 in state revenues. Since then, the circuit breaker money has been removed, which last year we brought in $164,000. It fluctuates year to year, but I'm using last year's number of $164,000. Just on Friday, the state distributed a list of holdbacks from their appropriations, which includes the renters rebate program that has been so heavily discussed in the last couple of weeks. That's another $267,000 of reductions for Guilford, bringing the estimated deficit now down to $180,000. So we're in it. It's gone the other way. The pendulum has swung the other way. The holdbacks could come back to us. Odds of that, we could flip a coin here, but still at a deficit of $180,000 is still better than we thought we might be ending this year. So
At one point,
at
the
one
governor's
point,
budget was $3 million.
$3 million,
Right.
right. So we may not know
think
until
they're
June
finished
30,
yet.
2018.
We're not finished yet.
But anyway, that's where we are today.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay. Down to revenues, I
Yep.
guess. Our revenues are looking very well still this year. We are right on line. Last year we were at 52.3. Right now we're at 52.4. We have some that are a little higher, some that are a little lower, mainly due to timing of invoice processing for those individual departments, but otherwise nothing real drastic that I could notice.
So we're right on target.
We are right on target.
Okay. Any questions for the finance director on revenue? Okay. Expenses?
Similar story on expenses. We're just slightly higher. At the moment, we're 33% through the year. We're 36% through our revenues as opposed to just shy of 35 last year at this time. Again, not a lot of fluctuations. All the departments seem to be pretty steady. And,
Okay. One question that I have, I didn't get a chance to ask you last week. The overtime that we had for the October 29th and 30th storms, that's one storm, is that booked in October, or can we expect to see that in November?
that would be the first week of November.
Okay, so that's not reflected in the
Correct.
expenses yet? Okay, so that would make us a little bit
Little bit.
behind, okay. And I know Public Works had a lot, and the fire department had some,
Right.
but not as much as Public Works.
Right. Public Works, their expenditures are lower at this time from last year anyway, so that,
So that's going to make up for it? Okay, good. Right. Any other questions? So I guess we can say that this board is leaving the town in pretty good shape. Good, thank you. I gotta get that in.
all set?
Okay, I want to talk about
Oh, yes.
insurance.
Oh, the insurance,
Medical
yeah,
insurance.
I got a couple more things, trying to get away from you guys.
Okay, well, you're not going to get away yet?
I know. Medical insurance, October was another good month for claims. Again, we're hoping that the HSA over at the school is the reason that we're seeing this, because we did anticipate a drop because of that. Revenues are staying steady at this point, and so we're showing a projected fund balance of about $2.6 million in the overall fund. If you look at catastrophic claims, we are at $59,000 of amount covered by the ISL, so we have another 1.2 that we can go there. We did increase that this year based on prior years, so.
Okay. So nothing to worry about at this point there?
No.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, we'll move on to 4.2. Discuss and take possible actions to recommend to the Board of Finance the transfer of $110,000 from the unassigned fund balance to the assigned balance reserved for personnel to cover estimated retroactive pay for contracts currently under negotiations.
That pretty much sums up my request. So, we are looking just at the end of the year, money that we had set aside last year for contracts that are still under negotiation. We just want to make sure that that money is preserved. So when those contracts are finally ratified, we'll have the funding available for us to cover any type of overage that might come up. So.
Okay, now, we do have two choices here, correct me if I'm wrong. One is to honor your request to make the transfer and request that the Board of Finance do the same. Or we can wait until the end of the year and see if we need the funds.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, so.
I would estimate that we would need at least some of them.
Okay, but you choose to want to do it now, so why don't you explain why?
Just to preserve that money, so it's really set at the end of the year, to know that our unassigned balance isn't really high by $110,000, because it is money we would expect. So just really to put the money in its proper place is what I'm really looking for. But it's correct, we could wait until the end of the year, and then we would have to take it out of unassigned fund balance at that time.
Okay.
But it's really an accounting change. If it's
Yeah.
not spent, it's not spent, and if it is, it
Yeah.
is. So
And
I would move that we approve the transfer as recommended by the finance director.
Okay, motion made, is there a second? Made and seconded. And if it's not spent, it falls to fund balance anyway.
Correct, or it's not assigned to any particular contract.
Right.
Every year we have contracts that come under negotiation. It would just mean we have to budget less in the next year.
Okay. Motion's made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gary?
Can I just be allowed a comment at this point before MJ leaves?
Please do.
A number of times I have asked that we allocate some of our fund balance towards specific accounts, i.e. for the purchase of, say, public works vehicles, fire vehicles, and others. We're not going to do, this board is not going to do it, but I would like to recommend to the next Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to examine that process and start pre-funding by use of fund balance some of those accounts that we regularly have historically bonded for. So I would just like to get that on the record.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you all for your support in my first year here.
Thank
All
you.
right, good job.
Good
Thank you.
job.
And I just want to mention before the finance director sits down, is that this is the first year in the last few years that the audit's been done. I would call it in record time. So, good work. Thank you. Okay, item 5, Health Director Dennis Johnson, 5.1. Consider to take possible action on approval of an amendment to the Wright Pierce contract for design of water main project in the amount of $21,075 and authorize the first selectman to execute the amendment. Morning, Dennis.
Good morning. This is regarding the Mulberry Point Water Main project. About a year ago, the town entered into agreement with the design engineer, Wright Pierce, to design the water main. Since then, they've been working on the design, and it's about 75 to 100% complete at this time. But they have requested an amendment in the amount for the design fees because of a stream crossing we have to do at the Daniel Avenue Creek crossing. There's an area down there where the water main has to be elevated above the creek in order, and then insulated in order to cross the creek above ground. This change in design is necessary to comply with Army Corps and DEP requirements as to where the structure can be located in relation to the coastal wetland soils that are in the area. It's a rather complex little area, but the design has to require a structural engineer now to design a side of an elevated water main crossing. Instead of burrowing underneath the creek, they have to go over it. So this discovery was made after we had a meeting with DEP and Army Corps about the jurisdictional soils and zones in this area. And so the engineer is requesting an amendment of $21,075 to design the water main crossing and also to do some additional surveying work in the area from Sachem's Head to Lower Road to establish a benchmark and an area to install the water main, and then some additional surveying work to delineate the wetland crossings and wetland areas on Daniel Avenue. This request of $20,000 has to be approved by the State Health Department first, the funding agency for the project. They have approved it. As of last Friday, they sent a letter authorizing approval of this amendment. So the next step would be for the Board of Selectmen to authorize approving of the amendment and then sign the amendment contract. So that's what I'm requesting today, is that the board consider approving the amendment number 1 of $21,000 to Wright Pierce to provide the additional professional engineering services.
And again, these funds would be rolled into the cost of the project and passed on to the
Beneficiaries. Yeah.
Okay.
I would move that we approve the amendment and authorize the first selectman to sign it.
Second.
Okay. Motion made, second. Is there any discussion? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Awesome job, as always.
Thank you.
You are the best. I think you should be the health director for the entire shoreline.
Maybe in another life.
I don't think you watched that.
Oh,
Absolutely not, but it would be good.
Item 6, Town Engineer Jim Portley, discuss and take possible action to authorize a bid for a vibrator roller.
and I think you should be engineering director for the entire shoreline with no increase in pay.
The whole shoreline would slide into Long Island Sound. You wouldn't want that. Back in 2016-17, we got $140,000 set aside for the purchase of a roller. With the trade-in of our old roller, we were able to purchase that roller for $113,000, which left us with a $27,000 surplus. Last summer, in pursuit of a lot of the projects we did, we had to rent a vibratory roller, a 5-ton vibratory roller. And the total bill for 3 or 4 times we used it was about a little more than $8,000. Discussed this with the Public Works Commission. They and recommended to them that we be authorized to purchase a vibratory roller with the surplus, with the $27,000 surplus. Now, a new one would cost about $35,000, but this is equipment that doesn't really get a lot of wear and tear. It's used by 3 or 4 months a year. Places we've canvassed the various vendors. There's a lot of good used rollers out there that we believe we could purchase. So I would request that the Board of Selectmen authorize us to go out for a bid for a new or used roller, 3 to 5 ton, with a maximum 500 hours on it, because that's how you don't rate it in miles. It's hours of operation, and they all have an hour meter on it. And that would be authorized to go out to bid and purchase a vibratory roller.
So you're just looking for an authorization to bid on this?
Right.
Yeah.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Question I have, this is from the general fund, obviously.
Yes.
It's amount of money. I'm assuming this is money that's carried in force?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Karen?
I have one question and one suggestion. The suggestion, and I'm looking at the next item, which is, I guess we're going to raise $500 from the sale of an old vehicle.
Pickup truck?
And some stuff that you came in a couple months ago, a month or so ago, and selling some junk. It's certainly recommend that we would add those funds to the pile to buy the vibratory roller. And I know that's what you've done in the past, is you bought some small stuff with
Yes.
the money you had.
Yeah.
But, that could be added to it. Second question is, you mentioned that it was difficult to get one when you wanted it.
That occurs.
Do we have the option, and I don't know, maybe we don't want the liability, but do we have the option of renting it out to maybe other local departments?
No, it's the use of the roller usually about 3 to 4 months a year, and when they used, everybody wants it. That's why the problem is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a season you use
It's
it.
seasonal use, yeah.
Right.
Nobody wants them in January. We want to back that snow down anymore.
We'll give them a discount in January.
How many hours, let's see, I know we've had a number of road projects lately, so we've obviously had a fairly high need for one. Do we have that many projects on the horizon in the near future?
We found it, there's some repetitive tasks that we have to do every year. Grading and leveling dirt roads, preparation for chip sealing. It really, I think,
So it's
really a
not
much better-
project dependent necessarily?
No,
Okay.
it's a lot of tasks that we can use for. I think it makes a big difference with the chip sealing. I think we've all seen the success we've had with that, no complaints. If we prep the shoulders properly with compacting the asphalt into the cracked shoulders.
When we contract out chip sealing, we have to go back, I know we do the cleanup, but.
No, we do, this is in preparation of. We do this prior to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you want to strengthen the structure of the road.
So
before
it's
you-
not just road construction then?
No.
It's-
Any further comments, questions? Call question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Jim? Jim, we
Don't
got
go
one
away.
for,
Don't go
no,
away.
Yeah, we got
You
the
gotta sell
6.2.
that
we got a
expensive Ford Ranger.
page 2 for you.
Well,
6.2, consider and take possible action on offer from Tri-County Construction Services to purchase a 2000 Ford Ranger previously set to be sold for scrap for $500.
right. This Ford Ranger was used by the building official for 17 years. It's 2000.
2000.
And, it's had a lot of wear and tear over those years. Determination of the staff that it wasn't worth keep pouring money into it, so we were going to just scrap it. I talked to the owner, this fellow who put a bid of $500, and I said, we're getting rid of it because we don't want to go through the bidding process and then have it be stuck with it in the middle of winter. He says, if I offer a certain amount, and I didn't tell him the amount, I just said we're going to put it to scrap, so he figured them out and submitted this bid. He just wants it, he's a very good mechanic. No, but he says, I just need a beater to go to the transfer station, to go to the stump, something that he doesn't have to worry about. He can fix himself. I said, fine. Submit a letter to the Board of Selectmen. If they authorize it, we'll sell it to you.
I move that we sell the Ranger for $500 to Tri-County Construction.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Motion made. Second, is there discussion?
There's no liability after we sell it.
No warranty.
They get the title, and it's there.
We could sell them one.
We usually issue an as-is bill of sale.
Okay.
Right. Any further questions? Okay, call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Jim?
Thank
There
you,
you
Jim.
go. Right, you are. Good job. Take care. Item 7, consider and take possible action on a resolution recommending 2 steps the new Board of Selectmen might consider, which would include the development of a transportation plan as well as the creation of a stakeholder study committee to provide input on the Nut Plains Path project. I want to first of all thank Gary for drafting this. Him and I then reviewed it, and we are now ready to present it to this board. Gary, why don't you read it?
Guilford has been facing controversial issues regarding sidewalks, pathways, bike and pedestrian safety. The issues involve safety, town history and character, property rights, and obligations. The issues are complicated by town ordinances, grant conditions, and in one case, a multi-town organization. Every effort to increase sidewalks has generated additional requests for sidewalks. The current Board of Selectmen would like to recommend to the incoming Board of Selectmen 2 steps to appropriately involve all citizens in a fair and open process to examine and resolve these issues. 1, the development of a new, professionally led transportation plan to replace and update the 2002 plan with particular emphasis on sidewalks, trails, and bicycle routes. The plan should outline a process of citizen involvement to evaluate all new steps to complete a new plan. 2, either separately or as a subset of the transportation plan, a stakeholders study committee, including professionals and neighbors for the Nut Plains Path, should be created to provide input to the Board of Selectmen as to the advisability of proceeding with that project.
I just want to add that I had suggested at our last meeting that we make such a proposal to the new board since they're going to take on these projects, or maybe not, but this is what I would like to leave them with. And Gary, for a while now, has been saying that the transportation plan we do have on the book, so to speak, is 15 years old, and I agree with him. It's outdated. And we should have a new plan prepared. Times change, and our demographics change. So I would encourage this board to pass on to the new board a suggestion, and it's merely a suggestion, that this is what we would like to leave them with. To look at establishing a committee to come up with a new transportation plan. Number one. Number two, what I got out of the informational meeting that we had regarding the Nut Plains Road project is that, first of all, we want citizen input, as always. And number two, I think the biggest thing I got out of it was that they wanted a stakeholders committee. And so I would like to pass that on, soon to be a former first selectman, to the new board, that they really consider a stakeholders committee for a project like the Nut Plains Road, and maybe for future projects like that. So that's why Gary and I kind of put this together. He did most of the verbiage on it, to be honest with you. So I would highly recommend that we pass this resolution and send it on to the new board. And that's my 2 cents worth.
Very well drafted. I would agree and concur, and even taking into account Ms. Higgins' comments that there should be a new transportation. I actually was the chairman that started the former transportation committee that created the plan back in 2002. And they always said that there should be a 10-year review every decade or so, and so it's gone way beyond that. So regardless of the issues that have come up on transportation, that plan should be reviewed and should be potentially updated, if need be. But I think the only thing I would also encourage is that they work with the Planning and Zoning Commission, because it ties together like it did last time. So maybe, getting at least 1 or 2 Planning and Zoning Commissioners on there, I think at least one would be key in terms of going forward, because some of the zoning and everything is going to be impacted, or could potentially be impacted. And that's why that commission working in conjunction is important to do it. And I'm always in favor of stakeholder committees. We did it on, as I recommended to Joe, on the deer management plan. I know, Gary, you were in favor of that, because this way people understand the process and they can buy in to the resolution and help to formulate a plan. So in order to resolve the conflict that we have on this issue and other ones, get the people that are involved in it as part of the resolution. So I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, I would just offer that the transportation plan, as we wrote it, should provide a framework for issues such as the specific Nut Plains plan. So, and unfortunately, the town may have to resolve the Nut Plains issue before the transportation plan is done, and I think we all kind of recognize that, but best we can do under the circumstances.
Is your statement in the form of a motion?
I will put it in the form of a motion.
And I'll second it. Okay. With the additional advice, just on the record, that they loop in planning and zoning as well.
Any further discussion? I'll call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay, item 8. We can only do resignations since we're not authorized to make any appointments anymore.
Is that right? So we can authorize Jim to spend money, but we can't put anybody on a commission.
Nope,
Interesting.
no more patronage. Not that we did anything.
Interesting.
8.1, act on a resignation received from Jack Penders from the Parks and Recreation Committee. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in
With
favor?
regret.
With regrets, obviously. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Act on a resignation received from Rob Pascal from the Guilford Lakes Golf Course Committee. Do I have a motion?
So
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's our resignations. Request for the use of town properties, 9-1 and 9-2.
I would move that we approve the uses of town property as listed in the agenda.
There's a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Gary, I hope they adopt that on the next board. Somebody does that.
That was one of my contributions.
That was a major contribution.
Saves a lot of time, doesn't
Oh,
it?
my God, sometimes we had like 10 or 12 we had to read. All right, correspondence, we have the monthly public works report and the monthly building officials report. Any comments? Okay, none there. Old business, I have, did you have your hands up? Okay. Old business? None? New business?
yeah.
Carl? Yeah, I'm sorry, Carl? Yeah.
I would just like to say it's been a pleasure to serve with this board, and not that I'm going to miss it, but it's been, I've always been very comfortable because I know that people do their homework, and it's just it's been very good for Guilford, and I certainly wish the incoming board well. I think we have a fine group of public servants, and I feel very good leaving town business in good hands. So thank you very much for all the years, and
Thank
good
you.
luck in your retirement.
Thank you. All right, okay. Gary?
Fine, I'll put in my personal eulogy. I want to thank the town for having the privilege of serving for the last 8 years. It's been rewarding. It's been informative. I've learned much more about the town than I ever thought was possible. The town, as I've said to some people, I see how complicated our little town of 23,000 is. God bless a governor or a president trying to resolve governmental issues, because there are a lot of complexities, there are a lot of traditions, rules, ordinances, statutes, other constraints to doing what some of us as individuals might like to do. But as always, this group has done its best, I think, and has done a good job. I would specifically like to thank the people of Guilford. It's been rewarding to deal with you, to serve you. This town runs on citizen involvement. It runs on contributions of free labor by a whole bunch of people, whether they're on boards or off boards, by people who volunteer as trail coordinators, or people who pick up trash on the streets, by people who deliver Meals on Wheels, people who most of us don't see most of the time contributing to their fellow citizens. So I just want to thank you for the privilege.
Well said.
Gary, thank you. That was really heartfelt, and I echo a lot of what you said, and I'd like to thank all the department heads. It's been a pleasure and honor. I've been here for a decade and serving the town for 20 years. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just transferring my energy into other areas, but I continue to want to and will continue to serve the town, and it's been an honor, Gary, to work with you and all of you on this board over the last decade for most of you. And a personal thanks to Gary for the professional and personal support you've given me over the last year. It's meant a lot. And to the residents, it's been an honor and a pleasure, and I look forward to continuing to serve you. So thank you.
You're staying. You don't get to say anything. You're going to be back.
No, that's not true. I mean, it obviously has been a great pleasure in dealing with this board for the past 8 years, and I look forward to bringing, some of what this board has done and demonstrated as an example to the new board. I just really appreciate the high level of professionalism that you have all demonstrated, and I know that we're going to be able to continue, and you've set a very high bar for us, so thank you. Don't forget, Well, I'm going to let you do your eulogy or whatever we want to call it, but yeah, we do have a celebration planned for Joe on the 29th, so anybody wants to get their digs in at that roast, that'd be good.
Well, I guess it's my turn. First of all, I would like to thank the people of Guilford for the honor, and it is an honor, of allowing me to serve as first selectman for the past 8 years, and allowing me to serve the town of Guilford for the past 24 years, which includes 10 years on the Board of Finance, 6 years as a selectman under 2 first selectmen, including Carl and Gene Bishop. And like I said, 8 years as first selectman. It's an honor, and for anybody who seeks that position, they should consider it an honor. And then I want to thank this board and the previous board for their support throughout those years. And certainly, as Cindy mentioned, the department heads. During the past 8 years, we have had tremendous success financially in producing 8 years of surplus, and that didn't come from us sitting here alone. It came from our department heads and the way they managed their budgets. And it came from the support of the citizens of Guilford. This is a great town, and I think Gary has said it, that in managing a government, it's very complex, whether it's the country or the state, but even in our little town, it's complex with all the rules and regulations, and you have to be careful that you don't fall outside those rules and regulations. But in being a first selectman or a member of Board of Finance or Board of Education, what's unique about it is that the citizens can confront you directly. You don't have to go through channels. Where in the other elected offices I mentioned, it's very rarely you get to speak to a governor or a president or a senator or a congressman. But in our government here, anybody can walk through that door and come and see me, and they have. And I think that's what's unique about local government. I grew up in New York City. You never got to see your mayor or even your borough president. And this is what I cherish about this town and in any small town, is that you get to see your chief elected official. And I never let that go to my head that you're the chief elected official and you only selected who can come and speak to you. No, it doesn't happen here. But it's been a great ride for me. I've been working, 50 years of my life or more, including my time in the service. And I have to say, this is probably one of the most enjoyable jobs I've ever had. There were times when I used to scratch my head and say, what the hell did I get into? But honestly, this is one of the most enjoyable jobs I ever had, taking everything into consideration. And I have to thank the people of Guilford. I probably have to thank my wife for letting me do it. That wasn't easy. If you think getting elected was tough, trying to convince her to let me run was even tougher. But in the end, we talked about it, and she agrees that it was good to have me take getting elected to this job. She even thinks I did a good job. But anyway, I'm going to cut this short. But again, I owe a big thanks to the people of Guilford, this board, and my department heads for, I think we all work together well. We've had our differences. But in the end, we all worked for the town. Our objective was not our party, was not our pet constituents. I don't have any. It was the town of Guilford, to move it forward, to make it better for everyone. And all I can say is thank you. Thank you to all of you. And we're not done yet. We still have a meeting to finish, okay? We still have a couple of weeks in office. And I thought I was through with storms until a couple of weeks ago when we had another storm to deal with. So who knows what's ahead. And sorry to say, unlike people to my right and left, because of personal choices, yeah, I will be leaving Guilford. But I'll always have Guilford in my heart. And Guilford has done a lot for me. So again, thank you. And I'll cut it short.
And you know what? Special thanks to Tracy and Karen. I mean,
Absolutely.
You probably couldn't have done your job without them. But
Oh,
thank
absolutely.
you
I mean,
guys.
I've met with Matt a couple of
And Pam.
times
And Pam.
since he got elected, and told him about our immediate staff inside, including Pam, and told him he has nothing to worry about. They helped me through my 8 years, especially my first few months there, and, getting adjusted, and they will help him. And by the way, the town will be in fine shape with Matt and the new board. So, again, let's move on.
Joe, just one other thing.
Yes.
Unlike Washington or Hartford, I was thinking back, and we've had unanimous votes. We've had 3-2 votes, but I don't think in my 8 years there has been a vote which has been Republicans against Democrats. If there's been a 3-2 vote,
Yeah.
we've split. This is not political. This is about Guilford, and split votes are because people had an opinion and a belief, not because they had a party.
Right. I mean, I've always said from my first year on the Board of Finance, that since 1993, that after the election, you can't tell who's a Republican or who's a Democrat. So,
That's true.
okay.
Although it'd be nice to see more women on this board, so let's hope. It's been enjoyable being the only female here for the last 4 years, but I hope maybe someday we have a female in the first selectman seat. That would be a beautiful thing. No offense, Joe.
No, I agree. I agree.
So,
I think if you look at the new Board of Education,
Yes, it's more women for the first
I
time
think
ever.
there's more women there.
First time ever.
And we don't know what's going to happen with the Board of Finance, too.
Right.
So there's a vacancy there, so we'll see what happens. Right, I'm going to move on to new business. Okay. New business, I want to bring to your attention an issue regarding cell communication. Pam, you want to brief us on where we are?
It's a little hard following all of that. Do my best. All right. The first selectman received correspondence on November 7th from the law firm Robinson and Cole, who represents technically Celco Partnership, which it's really Verizon, does business as Verizon. The correspondence deals with a notification under current regulatory rules that this company is wanting to attach small cell wireless canisters and antennas and associated equipment on an existing utility pole in town. This particular pole is on the green. It's on the south side of the green. Under the law, this is an actually pretty large issue in the state right now. In broad brush, certain companies are approaching utility pole owners, Verizon and others, and they're trying to attach their equipment, which they explain is for better cellular coverage, better data coverage. They are able to get around the Siting Council, which is the regulatory body that has authorization over cell towers because they're not considered cell towers. They're considered attachments to utility poles. So PURA is the regulatory body that oversees this type of attachment. Joe will explain that, like a year ago, some of these companies were trying to build poles in the public right-of-way, which were going to be upwards of 120 feet, and they were trying to get around the siting council. So there was a lot of lawsuits that occurred because of that, and CCM hired an outside firm, Burt Cohen from Merthyr Kalina, to represent CCM's interest in all of these, in what these companies were trying to accomplish. Based on recent meetings, it appears that companies like Mobility are backing off this idea of trying to create poles within the public right-of-way without siting council approval. We don't think that's over. That may be phase 2, and at least some of the companies are now acknowledging if they tried to do that, that would be a siting council issue. So putting that future aside, what is happening throughout the state is these companies are trying the next best thing, which is attaching to existing utility poles. And they enter into written agreements with whoever owns the utility pole. In this case, what's before you is an attachment to a pole owned by Frontier. Selco is required to notify adjoining property owners. That's why we've been notified. There's a 30-day period. This is now the law where the town has the ability to object to it. Selco and these companies take the position that you can't object because of aesthetics. You have to object for some safety reason or some other reasons. So because this is happening right during your transition, Joe has consulted with Matt, and they agreed to hire Burt Cohen, who represents CCM in these and has a lot of firsthand knowledge in how to deal with them and has been dealing with them successfully in other towns. And at least preliminarily, Burt Cohen is suggesting that we do object within the 30 days. And we think it's important to be strong initially because we believe that there's going to be several of these. And to start with the one on the green is of concern. You can't stop progress, but we have to take into account what the town and the preservation of its character, et cetera. So in any case, really this is just notifying of this correspondence. I think Joe is just going to pass this on to Matt and know that we, with Matt and Joe's approval within this 2-week period, will most likely be objecting to it, and then we'll go from there, which will then put us in a process, and we may require a public hearing in front of PURA. There's all sorts of future steps.
Just to won't belabor the point, I shouldn't say last year, at the beginning of this year, there was a bill proposed in the legislature, supported by Senator Schlossberg, which happens to be, she represents Milford, Orange, where else, Mitch?
West Haven and Woodbridge.
Okay, thank you. To defeat or prohibit, I guess that's the word, or make it very tough for a company like Mobility to put these monopoles throughout the state and have the municipalities have a much greater say in placing these monopoles. And actually, when I saw where they wanted to put them in our town, I actually testified in favor of this bill up at the state back in February, I think it was. And the bill was successful. So that's why companies like Mobility then backed off. And now their approach is to attach these canisters to existing poles.
Right.
Okay, and so we've got this additional, I'll call it, fight on our hands. And I've briefed the first selectman-elect on the issue, so he's well aware of it. But we're still in office, so we have to act. And so that's why I've retained Attorney Cohen, who was very, very active in helping to defeat Mobility and support, I forgot the bill number, SB, whatever it was, get that bill passed. And he's an expert in fighting these cases. And so we've retained him on Guilford's behalf. And the first selectman-elect, like Pam said, is very much on board with this. So Guilford is going to be protected as we
The
go on.
objection can't be based on aesthetics, you said.
Right.
Right.
I don't know what these look like. Are they?
They're not that hideous to be, obviously, but we just don't want to open the floodgate. Okay.
Yeah, I understand about, getting in line and getting your stake in the ground type thing. I just, I don't know what they look like. Some of them I've seen attached to buildings. I mean, they are fairly
actually-
innocuous. So I'm trying to figure out what our objection is going to be based on if it's not aesthetic. Because this is increasing coverage.
Correct.
So what is the negative?
Yeah,
if
it's kind of a double-edged sword here, We want the increase of coverage and better.
Yeah, I mean, there was even
But
a project afoot to, I forgot what they called it, but they
Can I
had
have
some
that picture,
increase.
Yeah.
this is what they wanted to do.
This is for this current one, not the
Yeah.
monopole.
Right. Okay, that's the current.
Right.
Yeah.
So the monopoles were like these cement superstructures that if you envision that around the green, it is a problem.
This is what their current
Is
proposal
that even legal? I mean, don't we have a 30-foot height?
Yeah, it's the state number.
Yeah, but it's not really that.
Yeah, I mean, aesthetically,
But-
So
Well, let the new board deal. I mean, they're
yeah, they
gonna-
will.
yeah.
They will.
They will.
Okay,
And that's
so-
Well, we had to get our stake in the ground.
It's like
Okay.
you're putting your stake, and what Bert Cohen said initially is he thought that there was sufficient grounds to object. The poles located in a historic district on town property, historic and scenic town green, and will involve construction in the form of a replacement pole, which, when the proposed facility is added, will increase the height of the structure nearly 9 feet. So there's some issues, and
but the trade-off is better coverage.
Right.
right. But what I did learn from attending some seminars with Mobility is these companies have some flexibility with the exact location. In other words, it's not, this is the only way that we can do the coverage we want, is it has to be on this pole. There were examples given about, we moved 3 poles over, so maybe off the green, and it was sufficient for their coverage. So there is some
I mean, that's
flexibility.
why we're
Right.
getting our plates in line, and I understand
Yeah.
those kinds of issues.
Yeah.
I just want to understand going forward.
No. And I think
there's-
what Bert is also saying, like any negotiation, it's like we're going to object so that we bring him to the table and say, can you move it three poles down? It's one of those.
We just don't want to give them a carte blanche on it.
I understand.
Okay.
I just want to
Thank
make
you.
sure, and that's the part I understood, is that there was something greater that I didn't know about.
Pardon? Okay. Okay, any further questions? All right, thank you, Pam.
Yep.
Okay,
Do we need to take any action?
No.
not at this point. Okay. Okay. Public forum limited to 3 minutes on any item. Anybody wishing to address the board? Sue?
Sue Robbins, 798 Mulberry Point Road. I know I've come before you before to thank you for the water project and your hard work. Excuse, I have nothing contagious, just something that's a frog in my throat. But I wanted to take this opportunity to give you a final thank you for your extraordinary efforts on behalf of our residents and the 3 communities for water. You've all worked on many important projects. Every project is important, but I just can't express to you how heartfelt our residents feel in appreciation for all the continued efforts that you've given for our residents to be able to get clean water, along with the support of the town when we had a referendum. Many who have not worked on this don't realize how complex and involved this project has been, and you all have shown a tremendous amount of support that our residents can never thank you enough for. Moving forward, when we have fresh water, we will always remember how appreciative we are of all your efforts. This has had a lot of moving parts, and as Joe expressed in his words, this office always answered any calls from our water committee, our residents. There was never a time where we felt we weren't heard and supported and listened to, and because of your philosophy of being there for residents, our 3 communities will have fresh water, and we thank you so much for all the hard work that you've provided to our residents to make this project finally happen after many, many years. So thank you. And we wish you all well.
Thank you.
Come back and have a glass of water down at
I'll take the ice cubes and something. Thank you, Sue. That was very nice of you. Anybody else? Okay. Item 14, discuss and take possible action on a land purchase. Executive session will be required. I'm going to ask that, is Pam there?
Yeah, she's there.
Oh, she's hiding. I'm going to invite Pam Hillman to the executive session. Okay, and we're all set. Do I have a motion, please?
No.
So moved. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Mike, we may come back for a vote. Okay?
Joe, I have to go to court, so
Okay.
I'll bid you all adieu.
Thank you.
We have a
Need a motion to come out of executive session, please?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
I'd just like to report that there was, discussed the issue of land purchase, and we decided to take no action, so there's no action to be taken. Before we adjourn, again, I'd like to thank everybody on the board for their support, and I'd like to thank the voters of Guilford. So this concludes the business for this Board of Selectmen, and I don't anticipate any further meetings, so I'll need a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Michael, thank you very much for your help.
You don't open a December meeting?
No.